My boyfriend told me he had not been too busy to call me. He had been avoiding me on purpose. I had spent months defending him to my friends, telling them his schedule was impossible and that I just needed to be more understanding. Then he admitted the silence was intentional. I am 32. My boyfriend, Marcus, is 36. We had been together for almost 3 years. Marcus owns a small home renovation company. His phone is always ringing. Contractors cancel. Clients change plans. Something breaks. Someone needs an answer. I work regular hours at a community arts center. For most of our relationship, I accepted that our schedules were uneven. Marcus was not very affectionate, but he showed care in practical ways. If my car made a strange noise, he fixed it. If I mentioned wanting shelves, he built them. He once drove 2 hours after work because my kitchen sink started leaking. He was reliable in emergencies. What he was not good at was making me feel wanted when nothing was wrong. I planned most of our dates. I started most conversations. I was usually the one asking when we would see each other next. Marcus would agree to plans. Then work would run late. Sometimes he canceled. Sometimes he simply stopped responding until the evening was basically over. Then I would get, "Sorry, crazy day?" I tried not to punish him for having responsibilities, but after a while, I started feeling like I existed only in the spaces his work did not use. My best friend Jenna hated this. She would say, "Busy people still know what day it is." I defended him. I told her Marcus had employees depending on him. I told her his father had been sick that year. I told her he was trying to grow the company. Jenna asked me once, "Does he ever rearrange anything for you?" I said yes. Then I realized I was thinking about the sink, an emergency, not me. The first real fight happened on my birthday. Marcus promised he would be free by 6. I booked a table for 7:30. At 5, he texted that he had to check one job site. At 6:30, I asked if I should push the reservation. No answer. At 7, I called. No answer. At 7:15, he texted, "Running behind. Go without me if you need to." I stared at that message. Go without me. On my birthday. Jenna ended up taking me to dinner. Marcus arrived at my apartment after 10 with flowers and a very expensive bracelet. I did not want the bracelet. I wanted him to understand why I was hurt. I said, "You could have told me earlier." He said, "I was working." I said, "That does not stop you from sending one message." He sighed. Then he said, "I cannot spend my whole day proving I care every time something changes." That sentence stayed with me because I was not asking him to prove he cared every day. I was asking him not to leave me waiting. Things improved for about 3 weeks. Marcus called more. He planned one date himself. He even left work early once. Then everything slowly went back. That became our pattern. I would reach a breaking point. He would make an effort. The effort would fade. I would question whether I was asking too much. At the same time, Jenna started making comments about him that bothered me. Not just criticism, personal comments. She said he was emotionally constipated. She joked that he treated me like an appointment he kept rescheduling. Once, after meeting him for drinks, she said, "I honestly cannot tell whether he likes you." I got angry. Marcus was not warm with most people. He was quiet, direct, sometimes blunt. But I knew the version of him who fixed my mother's porch without being asked. I knew the version who remembered exactly how I took my coffee. I knew the version who stood beside me through a medical scare. I told Jenna to stop. She did, mostly. Then, my mother got involved in a different way. She loves giving gifts. She is also terrible at listening. If I told her Marcus wanted a specific tool, she bought a cheaper version because it did the same thing. If I said I was buying him something, she sometimes rushed out and bought her own version first. It irritated me, but I usually laughed it off. Marcus did not. He once said, "Your family hears the category, not the person." I thought that was harsh. Later, I realized he was talking about more than gifts. The turning point started with something small. I had planned a weekend away for us. Nothing expensive. 2 nights at a quiet hotel by the coast. Marcus said yes. I checked twice. He promised. The morning we were supposed to leave, he texted that a client emergency had come up. I called him immediately. He did not answer. I waited an hour. Then 2. Finally, I drove to his workshop. His truck was there. So was he. He was sitting in the office, not on a call, not dealing with an emergency, just sitting there. I asked, "What happened?" He looked guilty. Then he said, "Nothing happened." I said, "You told me there was an emergency." He rubbed his face. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. I did not want to go. I honestly thought I had misheard him. I asked why he lied. He said he knew I would take it personally. I said, "It is personal." He said, "This is exactly why I avoided the conversation." For the first time, Marcus explained what had been happening from his side. He said every serious conversation with me felt like a test he could fail. If he was tired, I asked if we were okay. If he wanted one night alone, I wanted to know what was wrong. If he canceled, I wanted an explanation. If he was quiet, I tried to pull feelings out of him. He said, "I started avoiding you because I knew every answer would become another conversation." That hurt a lot, but I also recognized pieces of myself in what he said. I had become anxious. I watched his response times. I noticed when he was active online. I asked for reassurance more often than I used to. The more distant he became, the more I chased clarity. The more I chased clarity, the more trapped he felt. I asked why he never told me directly. He said, "Because you were already convinced the problem was that I did not care enough." I said, "You lying about work does not exactly help." He agreed. Then he said, "No, it does not." That was the first time the argument became quiet instead of defensive. Then came the part I was not expecting. Marcus told me he had spoken to Jenna. Not recently. Months earlier, after my birthday. He had asked her whether I had always needed this much reassurance. Jenna told him no. She told him I had become more anxious because he kept disappointing me. But she also told him something she never told me. Before Marcus, I had dated 2 men who disappeared when relationships became serious. One ghosted me after 8 months. The other slowly stopped answering until I ended things. Jenna said she thought Marcus's inconsistency was hitting an old wound. Marcus said that conversation made him feel blamed. So instead of becoming more direct, he pulled away more. Suddenly, I saw the pattern differently. I had spent months thinking Marcus was simply careless. He had spent months thinking I was impossible to satisfy. Both of us had evidence. Neither of us had the full picture. I was reacting to being forgotten. He was reacting to feeling monitored. And every reaction made the other person's fear look true. I still canceled the trip, not because he asked, because I no longer wanted to pretend a weekend away would fix anything. I told Marcus we needed space. He asked if I was breaking up with him. I said, "I do not know yet." He looked genuinely scared. That mattered to me, but it did not erase the lie. Update 1. We spent 10 days apart. No punishment, no silent treatment, just limited contact. During that time, Marcus booked a counseling appointment. That surprised me. He had always said therapy was not for him. I also started seeing someone on my own, not to learn how to accept less, to understand why uncertainty makes me work so hard for reassurance. When Marcus and I met again, I told him what I needed. Not constant texting, not access to every hour of his day. I said, "If you do not want to see me, tell me. If work changes the plan, tell me. Do not make me wait for a version of the evening that only exists in my head." He said that was fair. Then he told me what he needed. If I say I need one night alone, I need you to believe that does not automatically mean something is wrong. I said I would try. He said he would too. Update 2. We are still together, but differently. We schedule less. He communicates more. I ask fewer follow-up questions. Jenna apologized for making comments that embarrassed me. I also told her not to discuss my relationship with Marcus unless I know about it. She agreed. My mother still buys the wrong version of gifts. Some problems are apparently immortal. I do not think Marcus is suddenly perfect. He lied because avoiding discomfort was easier than disappointing me honestly. That damaged my trust. I also do not think I was simply the innocent girlfriend asking for basic communication. By the end, I had started treating every silence like evidence. That made honesty harder, not easier. What I still struggle with is this. People say, if they wanted to, they would. Sometimes that is true. But sometimes someone does care about you and is still bad at loving you in the way you understand. So how much do you accept because love is imperfect? And when does accepting imperfect love become teaching yourself not to expect enough?